Iraq, a zone of war where men walked in the middle. The smoke, dust and blood soldiers discharged your weapons, fighting for their lives, waiting the support that should to arrive via air in 5 minutes, and the train in 15. The casualties were constant. First aid had been applied, but men already had lost blood too much. The leader from that area. You knew that was in a situation difficult until a storm of sand. It would be better than that. Something was sighted on the horizon, and Fez, one of the soldiers, screamed by the sergeant with horror in the eyes when he turned and saw what the soldier had seen. The same horror settled in it. It was a spear. Grenades pointed in the direction of the group. The soldier. I knew it was too late to slaughter the shooter, but soon right away, for your surprise, he was hit in full in the head and knocked down. The soldier wondered if it was fire, friend. Maybe the reinforcements had arrived. Scanning the surroundings with mirror of your weapon, he understood, turned around for the group and announced that your location. He had been exposed, and there was a sniper enemy that it only got worse each time, but it was difficult. Say of where the attacks came, and impossible to hold on for a long time. More time, the wall from the place where they were hiding was bombed by gunshots. The sergeant shrank, protecting yourself, and ordered that they were all to the other building were about attack. The soldiers, they ran away, leaving the equipment back while they were running for their lives. At another point, the sniper observed, concentrated your sharp aim in the direction of the building of the group, while one of them fired. The sniper was preparing and fired accurately. The bullet crossed the air, quickly crossing the area. Combat until you get it right in the head on the other shooter inside the building. The group of soldiers advanced in formation, helping your wounded walking. An explosion invaded the place, and they advanced to the next point. The fastest that could were received with rains of shots, and they answered with fire. The sergeant asked what was it the situation outside, and they replied that more enemies arrived. The shots were continuous, and the ammunition was ending. After to recharge for a last time, there was no more. They were to the point to break more. A group of enemies approached. They only grew in numbers, and they did the soldiers. If you ask if your end would be, there the sergeant turned around to shoot, having only a certainty in mind. If you were going to find your end, there then, I would take at least one of them together for a brief moment. Your vision captured a flying pine tree in the air. It was a grenade that was being launched in your direction. For one of enemies, the place exploded, being swept away by flames. The bodies accumulated, and the remains of grenades rolled on the floor, but a group approached, sweeping the place in the middle. The smoke, thinking that there were no survivors, when someone arose from the shadows with the hand about the mouth of the soldiers and the knife in your throat. One was already before the next, could perceive the shadow advanced with the hand about your mouth and knife in your chest. Two were already the next shot, desperate, realizing what was happening, but in the blink of an eye, with eyes saw the shadow get closer with everything and hit him with the blade in the throat. Three were already. The rest started shooting for everyone. The sides trying hit it. The shadow moved quickly, eliminating all. On your way accurately. It was spinning and cut, leaving only the trail of their movements back. The smoke swallowed the place, spreading, while the soldiers of the initial group that had remainder were hiding. There was someone fighting with their enemies, were whoever it was. He was knocking down all alone, with shots, blades and blows bodily. The enemies fired frantically while he approached and threw them, shooting away, hitting the still on air. The group stayed in shock. He didn't have equipment heavy, just a pistol and a knife even. That's how it was knocking everyone down. They asked me if it was part of the reinforcements, but the sergeant remained in silence, watching him. I had already heard of that shadow. A man, Asian, with glasses and mask, wearing clothes. Civilians, the reward by the head. His was in $1.5 million. Two enemies appeared behind from him, were about to hit it with the shots. When he turned around with the blade, thirsty for them, the sergeant knew he was a mercenary that had won all the battles of which had participated. Bodies accumulated, falling to the ground before him. No doubts remained. The man, blue-eyed with an aura threatening, stopped in front of you, turned around before that could pronounce your name, and threw a knife that passed scraping by your face. Reaching an enemy that approached the mercenary, with aura sparkling, rebuked them, saying that it was early, too much to relax. He doesn't had time to take care of corpses. The sergeant was right. He was. Cloud, our immortal protagonist, looked at them inexpressively, and then turned around, turning your back to the squadron. One of the soldiers asked, because Cloud, he was there, that one that did part of Team Zero. He followed, walking in one direction, where the soldiers warned that had enemies. The The sergeant, however, stated that he would follow him. The soldiers tried to argue, saying that it was too much even to heat, but the sergeant assured that if that guy was really hot, then the companions from him should be together when they leave of the building. The Who found it was a floor painted of bodies, and blood were received by men armed that announced point B. Sure, that was the company private military team 0 like this, like the sergeant had predicted. Khulud and your team, they were there. What I did not know was the reason. A man red-bearded received Khulud, asking if he had stayed well alone in the end. There should be many enemies. Khulud patted on the shoulder of man, and he said, and he even already had. Careful of several now needed that would take care of the team for him. Beyond, he was grateful for that. To Gerald, the redhead, for everything that had been done. Until that moment, the sergeant stepped forward and tried reach Khuludi to do some questions, but was interrupted by Gerald, who looked at him seriously, saying that I was waiting, that he does not interrupt, because that was the ceremony of retirement of Khulud. While the soldiers looked in full shock, Gerald asked, please juniors, you don't saw. Nothing today. Khulud in turn just followed, walking towards to the horizon, through of the smoke and the brightness of the sun, until it disappears sometime after a newspaper reported the death of the president Lee Jun-hoon of the group Daesung in a residence, traditional, luxurious. The ceremony happened. Crowns of flowers, they were scattered through the courtyard, while photographers fired flashes wondering who was a mysterious person that followed to the coffin. None of them recognized the man, but only relatives were allowed. The boy-haired blacks and broad shoulders followed, walking until the photo of the president over the coffin. A man and a woman dresses in black were waiting in silence. When the woman saw the boy, what approached recognized him was the young man, master of the house. The man by your side closed his eyes, angry. Lee Jung-won was alive. After all, the boy followed, walking to the coffin in silence until the man approached him, asking where he had been for the last 6 years. Our protagonist replied that had walked around there. The man looked at him angry and with a posture threatening. Hey brother, not here. It's a place for you to come. He knows how much noise the reporters like to do, and even so, come here. Our protagonist, he really answered that you are an ungrateful son appearing after 6 years. You shouldn't at least provide your latest tributes. The man raised his hand, irritated, and questioned you. Are you ashamed talking nonsense about someone trying kill you and then disappearing, as there was chaos? When it disappeared, Jungkook remembered to the brother that your mother had delusions after that and asked him to understood. The brother said who was happy that he had returned to you, and the woman by your side tried talk to him, but he soon approached more of the boy and said, if the reporters discover that you appeared suddenly after disappear, the shame of our family will be exposed. Jung-10 interrupted, saying that from there on he would just provide your respects as a mourner common and leave. The brother got angry by intrusion, but the boy followed in silence, lighting up the incense and doing a bow in front to the coffin in your mind. He apologized to the president, Lee Jun-heon, saying that one could be considered your karma. The death of his mother and those ones that had stolen your life himself would do them pay. Even that were of your own blood. When finished, the brother asked if he planned to go away again, and ours protagonist replied that no, I was tired. Walking around there, brother. He did a comment acid, saying that sometimes could be more comfortable away from home, and our protagonist replied that was trying to stay comfortable now that had found the courage to return, had had a difficult time out, and I wanted to resume your career. The brother is bankrupt, looked at him angry and rebuked him. He had missing even before after of already having a job, and now I wanted to go back to be a prosecutor. The reporters would tear apart the group from Isung and the name of your father until the heirs of Chaebol avoided to appear in public. Was then that Jungwon replied, I was too an heir of Chaebol. You forgot that your mother wished, and that my dream was also become a prosecutor. The brother grit your teeth, angry of that bastard. He had to assume the responsibility for their choices, took a deep breath, and ordered that Secretary Kim, a man that was behind him, to enter in contact with the prosecutor's office and prepare yourself, in addition to investigate whether there was some reason hidden behind of the return by Jungkook. The woman by your side asked if he was going to ask for the part of your mother in inheritance, and he replied that Jung-won always had been a man mysterious. Then it was possible that yes, Secretary Kim called by vice president, but soon corrected itself, calling that of president. He turned around asking what was it, and the secretary replied that didn't have achieved find Jungkook when he had. Missing then, if you tried now, there would be limits. In the information, the man approached of him with the expression full of hate and said that in truth he didn't have found. Not that, did not have achieved, just not. I had tried enough if I had done. He would have found. The secretary took a step back while the president accused him to be complacent and allow the return of Jungkook if their father were alive, perhaps, until divided the inheritance. He needed find out if he had entered in contact with some executive during that time. If so, who and what did they do? Needed discover everything. What did you eat, where he slept, and who did you sleep with? He had to use all means necessary. Secretary Kim replied that I had understood, and it was kind of awkward thinking. I thought that would never have to enter in contact with them. This again is problematic. Jungkook now left the place going down the stairs, accompanied of a man that said already do 6 years since it disappeared in Lion. You know the hours. We are looking for, we even registered a bulletin of disappearance. If you don't have where to go, I will reserve a hotel for you. Then stay the time, whatever you want. Our protagonist replied that I was tired of hotels. I preferred places that they smelled to people, then asked if could stay in the house of the colleague. That should be very spacious. The man fell laughing and said a lot really spacious. I am an executive of the group. Dae-sung knows. I will send you the address. Come any time and your phone. Jung-hoon asked for the device, his, and put your number, then said that would pay for rent, not to stay for free. He asked where he would get the money and pressed the microphone of the device, saying that had won a little when I was out, to return the device to the friend. He said that would see him later. The boy asked if he still I wanted to work as a promoter and said that the vice president and others executives would be happy with that. The vice president thought he suspects, and there were no evidence connecting the group from Isung the mother's death by Jungkook. Jungkook turned to the horizon and asked if that one meant that had been all an accident, if had to give up and look for another thing. The man replied that was just worried with him, but Jungkook assured that already had. If past 6 years, during this long time he had endured with determination to survive, otherwise he would have returned to Korea. The man commented that he had changed very, and that was so determined. Then no would prevent it in silence. He watched him thinking about how not. It would be easy for young one like this when your mother had died and everything had been taken from him. The law never would be by your side. Our protagonist followed on a train crossing the evening, looking through the window. He thought for Lee Jong-boom that became president of the Daesung group. I'm the last one remaining threat. He must know why I came Korea. He must have moved the chopsticks with the prosecutor's office. He and two would have blocked all means so that I executed my plan. Then I will bring the opinion public. He pulled your cell phone and called for someone who answered if identifying. As a reporter, Kim Sang-go Jung-hoon, no needed identify yourself. As soon as he greeted the reporter, the same already recognized it and asked if he was back to Korea. Jung-hoon replied that not that one. It was a call of war. I could call him by name and not by collude beyond of congratulate you. Put recognize him. Sang-go laughed, saying no, could forget your voice, and asked what he wanted. Our protagonist asked if you meet and the reporter. He responded that was on a trip business, then it would be difficult. Jung-hwan said that was a feather, and that had something to ask personally. Sang-go smiled and asked if was time to pay. What should if it were a request of collude? I would find a way to get Jung-hoon. He responded that I had already paid what should by not publishing a certain history. Sang-go asked if that was enough and questioned what I wanted that he did. Our protagonist replied that nothing else. I just wanted a story direct hot of the table of the staff of relations. Public. Sang-gu asked what kind he wanted, and Jung-won replied that I wanted a crime, something big. Sang-gu sat down before from your notebook and smiled, saying that it seemed dangerous. Even retired the great cold, yet I wanted to do something new. In a few seconds, Sang-gu spoke what had an affair of children and asked if it was pleasing from Jung-won, who said that served the reporter, explained that recently there was a crime school that moved with the country had suspects, but the witnesses and evidence had missing. I did not know the child of who was the responsibility, but the police was going to madness. He knew that a case of violent school could be half small to heat, but it was the topic. Hotter. Until recently, our protagonist smiled, satisfied the culprit was irrelevant. What was important was the value sensationalist of the case. me, said that I liked, and Sango replied that would send the details for him, celebrating be able to see the skills of Kalyud in action. After so long, the evening yet painted the sky when Young-won sat down in a bank of the park, and it started to analyze the details of the case on your cell phone. The case had occurred in Korea. A student called Choi Ju-seon of the third-year class 8. The school Junjin was accused to harass and press for months colleague Jun-hee-min involving the situation's undue. 4 other students from the same class participated. As accomplices, the investigation official considered just threats and offenses carried out through the network's social in a given moment. Jean's father laughed that had problems with drinks, made a deal with the involved, and the punishment final, given for the school committee, was of just 12 hours of works. Internal at the end, the investigation ended that way. The story of the victim ended up being disregarded, even though I have become a subject. That generated indignation national. The repercussion decreased quickly, and the victim continued studying at the same school. What those involved for me it was already a reason enough to call attention. How my first Young-won case smiled. Observing the dyed sky by sunset, your plans began taking shape from there to a few moments. 2 of the accomplices were taken by car to school, while complained to hide, and they cursed the girl for having reported the case between if they laughed at their father for having sold the daughter in an agreement for money. That was why. What a joke, the poor. It was easy. Even so, they knew that per hour to the dust lower needed stay quiet and hope that do not transformed into something worse. Turning over the eyes, dissatisfied, one of them asked if would have what to look for, put a toy new, and the other laughed, saying that he seemed disappointed, started shouting between if complaining. What the girl was from high quality. Suddenly the car braked out of nowhere when, seeing someone stopped in the middle of the street, the driver placed the head out and shouted, if the guy I wanted to die staying. Standing there. Jung-kwan, who was the man in the street? He responded, putting your hand over the hood, saying who was the uncle of Riemin. The drivers went down of the car, cursing our protagonist. One of them that were brutes, approached, patting on your shoulder and saying that was busy and was going to leave past it. I just needed get out of the way while asking with love. Jung-hoon stuck his hand in your pocket and pointed the cell phone. Stops the brute saying, oh my, how scary. We can't have a conversation appropriate as such. We can stop to pose and say that ended. To say again, when you stay famous on TV, no will pretend that doesn't know me, right? What you said before. The man began to retreat with the hand on the screen complaining, and Jung-won only continued saying, say that once again. Why don't you? You can say who doesn't know. John Hyemin, the other guard. Back got out of the car and approached from him saying, enough is enough if you act. This is difficult for us. We cooperate, not I go waste time, and I will ask directly, what do you want? Seems that you have already done that more than once. Or 2. The brute yelled at him, irritated, saying that the girl's father already had agreed with the agreement, not an uncle, had nothing to see with the case. Jung-won smiled wide and raised 2 fingers, saying 200 to keep the mouth closed and I. Retreat, good. The 2 of them looked at each other quite without believing. Then they fell laughing, asking if he really wanted just that, and if you knew who was with stirring. The brute took him to the door bags and asked to wait there without trying. No fun. They would confirm your identity and only then would deliver our money. Protagonist looked for the car, thinking in. How I hated spaces tight. It didn't take long until another car arrived, with a man, bad looking at the wheel. The 2 cars followed. Through the streets, while our protagonist remained still and relaxed in the trunk. He used to do ambushes in places tight with the same frequency of meals daily. Even not like that got used to outside. He heard someone's voice asking, why? Give money to that kind of people. It was easier scare them so that they would be, although the bodyguard shouted with the boy that had said that saying which were orders of the president, it was for everything be done with description. The bodyguard he called the boy of William and said that everything was quiet for now. Then he needed to do silence. The boy rolled over the eyes, irritated for them being bothered, for a leech of those brutes complained, saying that if he said something on the network social would be complicated. He had to cooperate to help the guards. Also the boy turned over the eyes again, saying that the girl's father had accepted money, but he had to be treated as a criminal if not. Were it for him, that guy never would have arrived close. Of an amount of those, the expression of our protagonist, it got dark when hearing speech of Giseon, seeing the coldness and indifference with which he via the poorest the sun ended to set. The cars had arrived to a place abandoned when the brute opened the trunk, announcing that had arrived. He doesn't had time to scream before our protagonist buried a kick in your throat. The brute coughed, staggering back, and Jung-hoon got out of the car, saying with AR of mockery, "Ah, sorry. No, did you know that you were standing here in front? The atmosphere here. It's very good. You guys must have brought guests here before. Frequently it's not." Jung-hoon sat on the car hood, feeling the wind, and the brute reacted by running until he, while screaming, our protagonist deviated with ease. That wasn't it. Not even the boss of security. The brute tried grab it, but Jung-won hugged your arm, applying a blow and throwing it against the ground, while scolded him for trying, pull a knife against him. The brute, it fell against the car while our protagonist knocked him down easily. The two boys inside the car, they shrank with the impact. The brute got dizzy looking to the sky, while our protagonist watched him in silence. Soon he heard the sound of footsteps and realized that No was alone. A group of men in suits approached with knives in hand. He turned around for them and smiled, saying, "No, you knew what to do with so much hospitality would give them a chance. They surrendered, would send everyone go home safe." The henchman held. The laughter a camera filmed everything nearby, while that seemed to be his leader, approached saying that whatever it was, the scheme that he had done to Ali just to get $200 would end becoming your birthday of death. Jung-hoon replied that I was anxious for that, and the leader gave the order, so that did Jung-hoon kneel down before him. The group of henchmen advanced with knives in hand, ready to overthrow Jung-hoon. Our protagonist welcomed everyone calmly. He had a little of beating for the whole world. The first took a direct and was thrown away. The next saw everything and shouted warning that he know was a person common had to attack together. Jungkook moved his foot and buried the kick that broke the man at the moment of the impact. The next one came with a stick jumping behind him, and Jungkook turned around with a look challenging, striking the man and throwing it back. The last of the henchmen saw his colleagues accumulating on the ground and stopped tremendous Jung. Hwan looked with a smile pretentious and asked if he was with fear, while called him to the fight. The man advanced with the knife raised, screaming, and Jungkook knocked him down with a single movement. The leader saw his men fallen on the ground. If asked, what was that like? Possible that type of monster was that they were facing, terrified. He raised his voice and asked where he was from. Jung-10 looked with Kara a few ideas and replied that I had already said he was an uncle from the river. The last two henchmen gave up and ran away for the car. Jungkook asked if he was going to run away that way. Pathetic. And the man opened the door desperate, asking that Guyeon ran away. But first, that could give more details. Our protagonist jumped, burying a kick-in man. The boys, they shrank inside the car, and Jung-hoon, it was left, standing on the side from outside, looking at them, while the henchman was hanging in the window of the car unconscious. His leader wondered if he was at least human. The whole team. He had been annihilated for a single Kara Gil. Seon raised his hands half scared and said, "Ah, sir, you said that needed of money. No is 10 million. He would be 10 million enough." Jung-won looked at him with an aura, frightening, and ordered that if you got down the boys, they shrank and they asked because he battery and children. As they ask money, it would already be enough. Jung-hoon repeated that they should bend down. Gilson insisted, saying that he no needed to do that one. If 10 million were not enough, he could give 20. He had a lot money. Jung-hoon grabbed the boy by the collar and pulled him while he screamed, and with an aura of pure revolt he spoke, "When I laugh, asked why you don't resolve things through of negotiation." As now the boy continued increasing the offer for 20 and 5 million, while pulling a small can when opening LA. He smiled and pointed the spray of pepper to Jung-hoon, going saying that he had moved with the boy wrong. Jung-hoon shrank, coughing, and the boy continued squeezing the spray, asking how it was the taste of the spray imported. Jung-hoon fell to his knees, and the boy coughed, cursing, "The spray is gone," and the boy looked unbeliever for the can, saying that I had thought that was going to die. Our protagonist squeezed the eyes with tears, covering the face with the arms, while the smoke was flowing. The boys went down of the car, and they called Gil Zeon to go away, saying no, he had how to win a guy like that. However, he turned around, saying that if they let him, there he would continue chasing the how long. A guy who fought that way would be on the floor just because of a spray. Gil Zeon caught one of the knives, two henchmen, and said that needed cut your tendons. There were witnesses. Then even that the police, if it didn't arrive, would suspect of them. The face could fight, but if they were erased, it would work out. The boys agreed, and they took metal bars, leaving up Jung's one and starting to hit him one after the other, giving a beating in Jung one. That continued, shrunken on the floor, recovering. Gilson approached, saying that thinking about it, not just that was enough. The boys asked that he wanted, and the boy advanced, saying he would kill him, and to place the blame in the henchman, he raised your knife, and it suited with all your strength, saying that would send memories. John Hyemin, at the exact moment in which the knife approached. Enough, our protagonist grabbed the boy's pulse and held him with one hand. He closed your fist with force, making the boy scream in pain, and dropped the knife on the floor, and Sion entered in despair, and it started screaming. By yours friends that ran in answer, and started attacking Jungwon. As soon as they approached Jungwon, he responded, burying a punch in your stomach and knocking down one of them. The next jumped with a bar of iron, and Jung-hoon took a knife, next throwing on the forehead of the boy with the cable aiming at him. The last turned around and ran away, begging for forgiveness. Jung-hoon replied that who had to beg for forgiveness, it was Juseon, and it started to strike the boy that ran. The boy fell, being reached by a bar of iron, while Juseon watched everything in shock. I had been defeated so fast, and I didn't even understand. Our protagonist continued holding the pulse of the boy that was on your knees in front of you, while he spoke, the students today, in days, are scary. You really tried to kill someone. Gisyon I couldn't let go, and I didn't understand, as that man was so strong. Our protagonist assumed a posture scariest still, and spoke thinking well left over. Only you can have a conversation. Serious Gilson just could tremble and think in running away. He asked repeatedly why Jungwon was doing that with him. Jungwon replied that if he was asking, that was why, had lived very comfortably. Until now, the boy pulled a cell phone and said that would call to the police. Our protagonist released him with a smile on the face and said for him to go in front, and Sion stayed in shock on the ground, while our protagonist said for him to call if it were curious to see who the police would listen. The boy didn't you understand? Until Jungwon smiled, saying the word of a mere student, high school versus the word of a prosecutor. Korean is obvious who they go to believe without nor look. Gilson trembled without believing that he was really a prosecutor. Hwan pointed for the camera that there was next to them and spoke, and now not. It's time to bank the victim. You see that blinking thing in that car? That's right, the crime to kidnap a prosecutor. Korean with authority. Investigative Penal Code Article 278 Vision Special and Confinement. You understand the situation now. The boy countered by saying that he had started, but our protagonist smiled at him, saying, no, I was brought here later to be kidnapped. Although has been just an attempt, several people tried. Kill me with weapons in others. Words was legitimate defense. Put an end to this. Admitting all. The statements about John Hyemin and surrendering that it's the only way to reduce your sentences. The boy lowered his head, defeated, looking to the ground, while thinking, if he is a promoter, even the father would find he problematic. That's why that we resolved with the police before IR to the prosecutor's office. Why the hell there is a prosecutor in mine? Front Young One pulled the chip recording of the camera and said that would take the files with him. The last thing who said to the boy was for him to think carefully, and then followed walking away. The day finally ended about the city. A woman cooked in your apartment when the bell rang. She turned around, cleaning the hands and saying that had arrived early. She turned around to the screen that showed who was at the entrance and saw our protagonist stopped. He identified himself and she smiled, allowing your entry. She received him asking where he was all this time, and ours protagonist entered the house while she said it seems like it was yesterday that you followed me calling you aunt. Now I would recognize you if we're on the street, as is your health. Nothing hurts. Jung Hwan replied that was very healthy, and she heard to the living room of dinner where more people were sitting. A girl sitting blushed, looking at our protagonist thinking what daddy said that was a guest, so I thought that was an old man. Who is this guy? Damn pretty. I am completely clean face now. She stood up, doing a certain grace, saying that there was a subject urgent in the hospital and withdrew of the table, while the other boy, Rhea and Jung Hoon, was without understanding. The boy at the table turned around for him, laughing and said, it's been a while, Jung. Our protagonist looked at him surprised and answered, no. Tell me that you are the Tae Su you grew up. Both the boy pointed for the sister and I told him not to care with her. Her always acted that way when I saw handsome men. The man who had received our protagonist at the wake pointed your place at the table and invited him to sit down to eat, saying no, had prepared much more. What he could say if it weren't enough, our protagonist replied that it was a banquet as it used to be live abroad. He was with longing of food, homemade Korean. Your friend leaned over until he and said to Aunt even sent the maid, although earlier, and prepared this alone why you came. The woman laughed and said for him to stop, then was leaving the visit embarrassed. Jung-hoon watched the joy of the couple by a few moments until interrupted, saying that had something counting. The man asked if was something important, and Jung-hoon, he responded that he would stay surprised if I found out after the next day an article would be published. The man took your cracks and ours protagonist. He said that he would know more the next day, but that was working. In one case, the man found it strange and asked, "What you mean? You don't even was appointed still, as there may be a case of ours." Protagonist replied that your status as a promoter not yet had been suspended or interrupted. Then still, I had authority investigative. The man looked at him worried, and he also spoke. So where there is a case of a prosecutor without a department designated driving investigations on account own action recklessly, not good for your future, Jungkook answered. And if I unintentionally became target of a crime, then no, there is a problem to ensure the evidence and solve the case alone. The man found it strange and asked that had happened in just one day, that he had returned. Jungkook said, "You will know of everything tomorrow, but the reason why which I am mentioning this, you said that there would be people who do not want that I become right prosecutor." The woman seemed surprised and asked to the husband if it was true, and he answered, "And truth, the Vice President Lee Jong-beom called me and said that to observe you and report every movement you're—" "No, I know for sure, but the secretary boss and his associates probably received instructions similar. Those ones who drive business is involved with people powerful at the prosecutor's office. They will find out what did you do and where were you in the last 6 years and use this as an excuse to question your ability work." Our protagonist nodded and said, "I know the methods, theirs are always like this. Even when the president was alive, published articles aggressive about the relationship between the president and I, through by some means of communication. When I became promoter, claimed suspicion of treatment special. The wretches, they even covered it up, the fact that I disappeared. If I come back and return to be a promoter, they will put not just me, but also the group from Isung in the spotlight. But during the last 6 years, the fact of EU be a promoter of the Republic from Korea, I forgot about that, nor for a single day. The day next arrived, and the reporter Kim Sang-go called for our protagonist, and understanding he spoke excitedly that was too much even to collude. Choi Ju-seon had if delivered in less than half day. Since that he had spoken with Jung-hoon, our protagonist, he responded that he probably thought it would be advantageous when I asked, because Jung-hoon revealed that given that they knew that he had evidence, the strategy was to attack. First, a reporter asked that type of evidence was, and our protagonist, he responded which was the type that only incriminated him. Like his father, the rain was falling about Korea. When the reporter got to the point meeting of the two of us, protagonist waved signaling where was, and he followed with a smile on the face, saying that it had been a while, greeting your good shape. Our protagonist pushed the card from memory of the camera for him, saying, "You could feel this in relation to a man. Here is filming from the box, black, containing the crime scene, but you don't know someone at the police station." Sang-go replied that already had asked, and not there was none registered. Case our protagonist, he thought by some moments, and the reporter continued talking. Those kids, no, they said nothing since surrendered themselves, them too. Just recognized the statement by John Haming, and do not mention details specific on how they committed. I don't know the crime because they then delivered. Jungwon said that meant that was difficult. Arrest them and ask the what exactly would be plotting, because that man would be trying put the child safe at the police station. Was when blood ran high, the eyes understanding the situation, and Jung-won confirmed. This same the opponent knows how to use the law. Our protagonist got up, saying that should separate. Perhaps the opponents were watching them. Sang-go said that would enter in contact with him and withdrew from the store, following walking by the rain that fell about the city. The reporter does not was silly. Realized that was already being followed. Seemed not good. He turned in one from the corners and waited. The hooded ones reached them. Sangus received, giving good welcome, and men stayed in silence by some moments until several SE approach him, saying that since they had realized it was better to go straight to the point, he should deliver the card from memory that had received previously by Jungwon Sangu. It was done of misunderstanding and said no. You knew them were talking men don't seemed patient and pulled a knife, saying that would help him to remember. Sango laughed, asking if they were going, even threatened a reporter. With a knife, the man entered in position combat and declared, "Stop acting so relaxedly, today is yours. Birthday of death, and yet it's raining. Perfect tense not to die." He advanced with the blade, pointed for Sango that quickly moved, deviating and pulling a direct punch against man. Sango's fist released steam, with the veins jumped of so much strength that he had placed while laughing, saying that it was time perfect to take a beating. The other shouted and advanced against him to hit him with a knife. But I Bleed quickly applied a blow, spinning it in the AIR and burying a direct punch on the chin of man. He fell to the ground and blood trampled, while the same saw the teeth and said no, was a reporter common. Before receiving an answer, the man felt the boot of blood sink against your face, while the big guy laughed, saying for him, "Shut up, or I was going to end dying." For real blood. Ordered that the man woke up the partner that had fainted and followed him when they asked where to the reporter. Smiled, saying that had committed sins and now had to be punished. The man got confused, and Sango explained that the punishment would vary accordingly with the form. As he wrote the article, then they should think well before to respond. The questions were simple. Who was their boss, and that they had done wrong before the man shouted, feeling the boot of blood to tighten again your face, and ended up giving in some time. Then the two got up when finished to speak, but blood prevented them, saying that had to go to the police station together. He yet warned that his friend ran 100 meters in 12 seconds. If they ran away, one of them was going to die, while the other would be placed on the list. Wanted of the police, they followed Sango, asking if he was a detective or something like that, but I Bleed ordered that they stayed in silence. Soon he asked if they had more henchmen in the cafeteria, and they confirmed that yes. Sangu smiled, saying that should stop and get one coffee for the trip. The man looked at him extremely disconcerted, asking if he wasn't worried with the prosecutor that had remained there, and Sangu Ryu, saying that I had understood bad. Him seemed confuse intelligence and power as separate things. The result was what we were already expecting. The henchman that there was, if found with our protagonist, he was with the face swollen from so much beating. Jungkook stopped in front to a place and asked if it was destiny indicated. When the man confirmed, asked if I could go, although Jungkook replied that if he wanted increase your punishment running away, so let it be. But who knew that he would wait in silence? The man turned around, feeling the look threatening by Jungwon, and confirmed that would wait. Jungwon entered in the building, opening the doors with all your strength, and found some men taking tea. The man redhead looked at him and questioned who was he. Our protagonist asked if he was the President Choi's man, Choi's father Gyu Seon, and stated that the police. He was on the way. The man was in shock, and Jungwon sat down comfortably on the sofa at your front, placed the cell phone at the table, and said that I would give you 3 minutes to defend. Jungwon activated the stopwatch on cell phone, and Choi brother recognized as being the prosecutor who had defeated his men. He asked if he wanted one order of apologies, and ours protagonist replied that was not interested in something like that. That he wanted were the names and positions of who had covered. Apu people from school by Jong Jin like this. He would avoid the sentence Maxim Esman. It fell laughing and said that he knew how to negotiate. Perhaps should even call him a farce. Instead, as a prosecutor, he had some connections with the prosecutor's office, and even looking for never had heard talk about a Lee Jung-won. Our protagonist warned that we're missing 2 minutes, and Esman became angry, saying that he was going to die if it continued. So Jung-hoon looked at him seriously and declared, thought that you were a guy, intelligent aggression, attempt of murder, and even threats against a prosecutor. You thought that could escape doing these things. With only the evidence that I have you, it's over your son who surrendered himself, thinking that you would save it for sure, will pay for crimes his too. Esman lost the control and left on top of him screaming, but before that could reach our protagonist, raised a hash brown and stopped centimeters of your eye, saying that there were 40 left. Seconds when the man stopped, Jung-hoon put the hash brown again at the table, while the man watched him, thinking about how would it be dead if that was a knife. He then asked who was Jung-won. Jung-won, and he answered with an aura threatening that was a prosecutor from Korea. Jung-won announced that time was over and said that he had spoiled your last chance to redeem oneself. Esmond asked if he thought that the police I would be on the side. His Jungkook replied that I wouldn't have gone until then, if not had. Complete sure. And if he was curious, could look for himself online. Name Esman. Took your cell phone and played your name at the bar search. A series of articles arose, and he stayed in shock, observing the screen, thinking what he was. Same a prosecutor, clearly. The information that I received said no, there was no prosecutor called Lee Jung-won Drug. This bastard will investigate my case directly, and he will investigate not just me, but also my son. And if he has the media on his side, I can lose everything that I built until now. This prosecutor, it's a typhoon. You don't can face a typhoon. With a castle of our sand, protagonist got up to go away, and Ismano followed desperate, saying no. P promoter, all data on the people related, the school of Ondin. No, furthermore, I have a lot more than I can offer to you. I will take over, admit my mistakes, and lend my strength to the prosecutor with yourself. He thought throughout the effort that had been done to arrive that position, however, not it would take a long time. The police arrived, and Esmond, if became defeated, a police officer approached of our protagonist, recognizing him and saying that had heard that he was next. By Kim Sang-gi, he was the leader. Your team is the Kishol of the unit of investigation. Regional. Kishol shook hands of our protagonist and said that your lord had praised, saying that if I worked with him, your performance was guaranteed and ensured that would cooperate with the investigation. By Jung-won, from that moment, our protagonist didn't feel well. He realized that that man seemed different of the police, corrupt that used to appear, that Theo in turn was watching, thinking a man that became promoter through of the studies, learning and arresting directly those ones that attack with knives of fish. I've never seen this, not even in a movie. Promoter Lee Jung-won. There is more of one thing suspect. So what your colleagues placed? Handcuffs. He said that I would see him later and promised loyalty when he turned around to go away. Our protagonist went straight to the point and asked if he wasn't going to investigate what uncle stopped, surprised, and turned around asking that he wanted, say, Jung-hoon, then asked if I had understood wrong, and the two of them faced in silence by some seconds until she'll turn around and say yes. They would investigate. Jung-won remained in silence, looking at and then that Sheol threw the head back, falling, laughing, saying that I was joking and that they only investigated who committed crimes. Jung-won passed by him smiling, saying that since he was the victim and the witness, he would accompany them voluntarily and give a statement that Xiao was caught by surprise and turned to, he saying that the evidence delivered were already perfect beyond of the article written by Sango. If there were any needs, he would ask formally. They were a team of investigation. Regional, after all, no investigated anyway. Jung-won said that they were reliable. The phone rang and the two separated. Kitty Hall went out in the rain, attending the connection and asking to someone if the person had found that I had asked for. On the other side, the person answered him, good. As you said, sir, there is more of one thing suspicion. First, this man that became prosecutor after pass the exam of the order, still no has experience career, besides being official military legal, even after the exam of the order to have been abolished. You know, why upon entering in the Kishiol car, replied that had heard that he was outside the country, but the person he responded that he had in true missing Kishiol stayed in shock with that information, and the person continued saying that there was a record of person missing and Sheol stopped, and he kept thinking, I thought that he does not was a person common just by looking for him, but he disappeared on average. The number of adults missing per year is superior 500, among them just about 10 return alive. He then asked what your informant explain in detail that had happened, and the person spoke. The ancient was the director Jung Seong-woo of the Daesung group at the time, in which Lee Jung-won became a new prosecutor. There were suspicions that he was the son illegitimate of the president, Lee of the group, Dai Sung Little. Then your mother was killed in an accident of being run over and escape, and the prosecutor, Lee Jung-won, would also have stayed there. Kichio remained sitting in the car while complained. A case of this magnitude should have been reported in the media, but no, there was a single matter. The culprit must have got it right on the other side of the line. Your informant checked the data at the police station saying, unfortunately, no, there were were cameras, CCTV nearby from where the accident occurred. If we had investigated deeper, we could have found the number of the car of the guilty. But it seems that the investigation no advance beyond from that. At that moment, the prosecutor Lee Jung-won was also abroad, and it was like that the case was swept away down of the carpet. Kichao shouted, asking who was in charge of the case to close an investigation that way. The next one information, it was unexpected. The informant warned him not to mention those things out loud, or would enter in trouble, because the detective responsible at that time was now the boss, police. What Uncle Al grit your teeth angry, and the informant warned that looked like be a big thing. If they moved with that would end left over for them. Uncle doesn't chickened out and asked him to scent the documents for him. The informant replied that he would enter in trouble. That wasn't none investigation of the unit regional. The boss asked again, and the man realized that there was sincerity in your voice. The informant responded, since that I was at the gym, police. To receive a request from you, sir, was my goal of life. But this looks dangerous. The authorization security also, please. Be careful. I finished to send the email, both of them. They hung up. That uncle had the name of our protagonist in your mind, and a question like Kim Sang-ho knew someone like him. It didn't take long to Jung-hoon be received at the police station by reporters, hungry by news questioning, as he had done your investigation. And what did you think of movements of the police? Jung-hoon stopped in front to the microphones and said no was a question that he could to respond. He just had been caught by chance in the midst of the case, and not I expected that all that happened. More questions arose, and he assured that no had a choice beyond IR to the location. Personally, it was then that someone smiling maliciously in the background raised his voice and asked. I listened that the prosecutor Lee Jung-won, not yet affiliated to the prosecutor's office. Our protagonist that was already prepared for these questions replied that yes, he was out of the country until recently, but what happily the prosecutor's office had preserved your status. During this time, the man approached from the front saying that, how was he? Out during a long time he lived as a civilian while it could become a prosecutor, senior following without not a drop of experience. He could even have more knowledge than a civilian common, but the man doubted that was on the same level of a prosecutor active. Jung-won smiled, saying yes, he still would have to pass in the exam of retraining. The man smiled at him, saying that he sounded like if you wanted return to the prosecutor's office, and that at the moment he was in the Ministry of our Justice. Protagonist confirmed, saying that I would come back like this, that possible. However, not was something he same could judge or choose him. He had to wait and comply the decision of the Ministry of Justice. The man frowned the breast angry, saying, I understand perfectly, which means I also have another question then, in the end of the accounts. All this not, it started with the case from school secondary by Ongjin. At the moment, the main suspect admitted part of the declaration of the victim and surrendered suspect if what crimes related to sex too they were involved. Maybe it is, that's why that all the nation is currently indignant when listening the news this, and the biggest problem since the relevant law was amended in 2012. If the acts criminals of the accused student are recognized, that what type of punishment they will receive. Given that you are a promoter, you should know that as knowledge basic, right? The truth was that man thought in secret. I wonder if you who were abroad for a long time, it achieves remember of the accusation for offenders. Usual, what it was established in 2010. Ours protagonist that was not strong only physically. He responded quietly, Article 290 and 7 of the Penal Code. A person who rapes other by violence or intimidation will be punished with arrest and work for at least 3 years. However, due to the Article 305 established in 2010 regarding to offenders usual, the sentence prescribed could it be increased in up to half. The student accused Choi Ju Seon and its 3 accomplices can receive the maximum penalty legal depending on of nature of the crime. The man sawed the teeth, irritated, while Jung-hoon walked towards you saying no, only the Article 290 and 7 of the Penal Code, but you too do. You know the accusation of offender usual established in 2010 seems what you reporter Park Jong-pil studied law. In a way, enough diligent the reporter was in shock and asked, how did he know? Your name was then what our protagonist asked if he knew the Article 308 of the Penal Code. Jong-pil, no, did you understand face to face? But with a face of astonishment, he listened. Our protagonists say that it was about of the crime of defamation of the deceased. Others reporters commented each other, as it seemed that they knew there is enough. Our time protagonist passed by him saying softly, starting with the article about the son illegitimate of the President Lee Jong-byom. Even after that my mother passed away, you published tirelessly articles malicious about me and my mother. From now, the suspicions dirty that will follow them are just the beginning. Very slowly I will do you feel despair, that my mother and I feel. He patted on the shoulders of the reporter and then left, walking with your hands in the pocket, saying, those ones that commit crimes are punished and people innocents recover. Happiness that should have this. It's Justice John Peel dialed a number and called desperate to your boss. The man on the other side reprimanded for calling for him. The reporter said that there was a problem. Jung Won knew who he was. The man, he responded, asking what was the problem. He had made an order too difficult. I had already paid more than enough for only a few words. The reporter, I had failed. Even so, Yong Pil tried apologize, but the boss just ordered to shut up. Yong Pil asked that he wanted say with that, and the boss replied that at the moment in which he opened your mouth, his life and family would be his finished. He had proof of everything wrong that he had buried in recent years. In addition of the money that had received, then he should know what that meant. They shouldn't. If you meet again, Yong Pil fell on your knees on the floor and clenched his fist around from the cell phone, had done everything that one to survive, and he doesn't, could end that way, one night starred within. Of a building luxurious, the television passed the news, while the voice from the reporter echoed, saying on the prosecutor Lee Jung-won, who recently became a subject warm, the Ministry of Justice announced that he belongs to our Ministry of Justice, will be appointed as a promoter probative to fill the gap left for your absence. Promoters, evidentiary, are new promoters. Junior, who received training of promoters, supervisors for 1-0, Jong-byom, what was sitting next to, of the secretary Kim. He asked him about the results of your research. Kim started your report. Lee Jung-won, that wandered across Europe, took the exam admission for the Legion Foreign, known as a Legion Foreigner, French, after completing about a year of preparation 6 years ago. As your trail, it got cold from this point, seems, that he passed successfully. Jong-byom turned around and asked if he had passed, and Kim replied, well, due nature of the Legion Foreigner, they don't provide information about your members. But seeing as he was kidnapped during the incident from Jeonjin High and escaped with their own hands, the inference seems correct. Jong-byom said that that was ridiculous, because someone that was of the Forces Specials would want become promoter again. He said that that would do per hour and asked for Kim continue with the reports regularly. Kim, he did a bow, saying that would take care of everything, and withdrew. Jong-byom got up and was left standing watching the lights of the city while thinking, Lee Jung-won attracted enough attention of the public, but this method will be last analysis. Your fall cut the route so that he does not may cause more problems. I need to put more pressure at the prosecutor's office about that. A train cut through the city, taking civilians in the evening soon. The people noticed that Jungkook, he was along with them and recognized him. Like man of the news, girls commented among themselves, if, while our protagonist remained concentrated looking for cell phone, wondering if you call yourself, attention of the media had been more problematic than beneficial. He received a call by Kim Sang-go that started the connection, already saying that had seen the news and asking why had placed he as a promoter probative. He replied that it was expected, but without the help of blood would have been impossible. The reporter laughed, feeling flattered with a compliment coming from Kaluda, and Jung-hoon asked, because he had ordered so many reporters, the exhibition there was so much that he might had what to buy. A Sang-go car replied that era Korea itself, that the bait was small as an anchovy. The reporters, they would come like piranhas hungry. He had sent just a few, the kindest and discreet, but someone had leaked Jungwon Hill, saying that one of the big ones he had attended. Sang-gu asked, who is it? Our protagonist replied that had been reporter Park Jong-pil from the Daily Diary. Sang-gu recognized and called him a bastard, while our protagonist said that seemed that there was someone behind him. Besides seeming satisfied in having it back, Sang-gu asked if it should investigate, and Jung-woon, he asked if didn't have some type of rule about respecting the veterans, but Sang-gu just asked if he was the type that would call these things. He was Rhino, maybe not, if only it was so good as he had, but trust enough to follow in front. Jungkook recognized that name and commented on nostalgia. nostalgia, our protagonist asked how everyone was going. Sang-gu turned around saying that were going so well every time that Jung-hoon was mentioned, they cursed him as if it were a traitor. Jung-hoon laughed, saying that I expected this. Given that the years they were burning lately, Sang-gu said that he could to say if needed of some help, he would until the end with that case, and Jung-hoon assured that he could to enter in contact with any time if I had some information. Both they hung up, and Jung-hoon finally went down at your station, followed walking by the place, while I realized that was being observed. The man with a cap and clothes black followed him while he turned on a corner, and when turning back from him did not find nothing. The man was in shock, looking on one side to the other, looking for our protagonist. He appeared on the other side, asking if he was being too obvious on his lookout. You knew that had been followed since before of the train. So who was it that Man Young-won reached out to withdraw the mask with one movement skillful, and the man quickly slapped deviating Young-won, asked if he had shame, and the man said he had. If confused, you'd better go. Although each one to your corner, Young-won stepped forward towards you, saying that if I wanted to pretend he had, that would have been more careful. The man swerved, pulling a punch, saying that he was just a collar white, that I didn't know how the world was. But he could be more deceived about our protagonist. Jungkook dodged the punch and changed your posture. Moving, the man realized that he had deviated and heard it jump, burying a kick that threw it back. The man had to lean on the floor so as not to roll more, and Jungwon approached, saying that he seemed a professional. The man mysterious looked at him, wondering if Jungwon was only a nerd who only studied. There was a saying for him to watch a prosecutor common, but he was different of information that had received. Jung-hoon commented, laughing, of the expression of panic in your eyes, and the man jumped. Knowing that I had to leave from there, he advanced for a punch straight to the face of Jung-hoon, who quickly deviated, responding with a direct on your chin. The man rolled, falling to the ground, and Jung-won stopped on top of it with the shadow on your face, saying, Group Daesung, Secretary of the Vice President Lee Jong-byom, right? It seems what you received was wrong. Even so, to a professional to have caught it like this. So easy. If you come back, will leave of graces of the group from Isung, and eventually your life will be in danger. Neither is. The man widened the eyes, and an ask that he wanted was when Jung-won proposed he could be a double agent. Jung-won would pay double of the commission that Dae Isung was paying. Your conditions were simple. He would just follow, monitoring Jung-won and reporting exactly what I saw. The secretary opened his arms and said that in that branch, to accept one against commission was against ethics professional. Jung-won replied, Stop with this nonsense. You is doing that for money. It is not, if not for, that it's because find the group from Isung an opponent, very heavy. The secretary turned around and sat down, saying, I look like someone. What would get involved in business so dirty? The majority of work in this field depends from instinct, but mine intuition tells me not to get more involved. I'm leaving. Our protagonist offered 50 million won in cash per month. The man said that looked like difficult with the salary of a prosecutor, and Jung-won stated that still would have 100 millions as payment in advance, but it didn't matter very much if he refused. Finally, catch suspects of activity. Criminal, it's your job. The man got up, saying that he hated the most was be manipulated by others, but no, there was a way out. Then turned around, asking that he should report, and our protagonist replied that for today he should say what nothing happened. The next day, Jung-won walked by the crowd, thinking for work, loading a folder. It looks a little strange even. So they are not getting tired, assigning surveillance different since tomorrow again. They are not even trying to hide their presence, while he followed, trying to divert of those who followed him. A woman spotted him and followed him to an alley when she turned the corner, going after him. Our protagonist grabbed his hand and leaned on the back, asking what she was. The girl screamed, and he realized that she was dressing a uniform school. Immediately, already foreseeing the type of problem, what was he getting himself into? He released her, asking apologies and saying that had if scared for being followed. The girl-haired Browns turned around, saying that everything was well, and asking sorry for hesitating and follow it while I was trying to speak with him. When he recognized her, it was Jeon Hyemin, the girl that he had avenged. She did a bow before him and thanked, saying that had the followed to thank. Tears started dripping by the face of Hyemin, while she repeated who thought that everything was finished. Not even your friends, teachers, or parents believed in her. She covered her mouth, still crying more, and thanking for him to clean the injustice that had happened with ALS. He was deeply our gratitude, protagonist asked, that she lived with confidence. From there to front with shine and happiness. This was the biggest revenge against them, and he would of everything, so that no one suffered more. The injustices that she suffered. Riemann continued with tears dripping in your face. He then acted out from the alley, saying that was grateful because thanks to her, he could work even harder. Within of the building of the Ministry of Justice, our protagonist crossed the hall, listening the comments that surrounded him. That guy, it's Lee Jung-won. I have to work in the same desk that a guy, so it's disgusting, the height of someone that surpassed the limit of the prosecutor district through of manipulation from the media, only a prosecutor acting without any sense. Jung-won, no expected to be particularly welcome, but they were leaving your displeasure very obvious. He followed to a room with a sign writing Prosecutor Lee. Soo-young, later of some beats, entered and introduced himself. The woman from the side, from inside, smiled for him, saying that he should be the new prosecutor, besides saying that he was more beautiful than on television. Woman of long hair, browns, with a smile in front of you. Lee Suryan era of 27 years. Jung-gwan observed her thinking at the moment. And prosecutor younger, from the office of the prosecutor of the district central, Tu-yong, in turn reached out for him, thinking he doesn't just passed in the exam of the order at 23 years, as it was also the official speaker at the Institute of Training. The two of them greeted, while she said, I wanted meet him, veteran. You were quite famous between the freshmen, so it seems that I am knowing a celebrity. Our protagonist asked that she just treated him as a prosecutor, probative normal, and ALS handed him over a folder saying, let's close the small talk here and direct IR. To the point, here is the file of the case. Jung-hyun, related to you, prosecutor. As expected, it was a setup, it wasn't. I could see just by looking the statements of the perpetrators. Jung-won asked if she believed in the statements from them, and she answered, well, I trust more in my judgment than in the statements you said that was kidnapped by the perpetrators. But actually to IR, to a place isolated, he left B. Kidnapped it wasn't. And as the boss, goodbye Sky of the unit of serious crimes, he called you to the bar, given that you're done to return from abroad, probably called through of a third person seeing, as the reporters also ran for the scene. This third person probably was a journalist, whether you like it or not. Now we are partners, at least while we are not together. I can accept this method of yours, oriented by results. Jung-won pulled the folder from her hand with force, and I said, I am in charge of this case, and if I cared, just with results would have solved very faster. Tu-yon was surprised and said that you just to say you are admitting what it was a setup, right? You don't thought that if this fact is revealed and the criminals are released, this could make it difficult for the victims. Our protagonist shook the folder by your side, saying before of this, please consider the fact that they were the promoters and the police, that no investigated adequately from the beginning. Now I can go finish my case. Soo-yon delivered some folders to him and said that of any form the case from school, Jung-jin, it should be completed yet that week, and announced for the media, other than that had assigned a new case for him. Jung-won observed carefully the folder while she explained the file of the club case, Coker I am sure of, which this case, prosecutor, was enough controversial, was a great case, where even arose suspicions of collusion between the club and promoters police, and are assigning such a case to a prosecutor in period probative. Jung-won looked suspicious. Apparently Lee Jong-byom wanted to control even the cases that were being assigned in choice. He said who understood, and that would assume the prosecutor looked surprised and asked if he was going even catch that case, to which Jung-won, he responded, why not? As a partner in the same desk, I am trying to assume total responsibility by the case entrusted to me. Soo-yon commented that the case had been given, knowing that it was difficult deal with him, and ours protagonist asked if she was concerned with him. She replied that no, just needed consult the researchers, with a look serious, and ended by saying, you can leave if you want. Me too, I don't trust in you. Still promote. Hey you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. This was just the beginning. Want to know what happens next? Then hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the upcoming episodes.